Man, I told my city I'd be gone till November, then November came, then I came right back on my worst behave. What's up, my dudes? We got us a little track review here on Midnight Supercross. Pretty sure is the name of this. This is the Hurren compound, right? It's made by Hurren MX. So, yeah. This is one of the first nighttime tracks I'm pretty sure that's ever been made for MX bikes. So that's kind of a, cool little first time thing that this track's got going for it here. Definitely gives you the nighttime vibe, no doubt about it, bro. But by the way, we're making huge gains on MX bikes. I'm talking, oh my gosh, we're going 0 to 100 real quick. I'll squat on that real shit. Spinty boy popping off now, boys. We're going somewhere now in the game, so that's kind of fun to be able to do that. But yeah, so this track has got quite a cool little, what I would call naturalistic type feeling to it, with the micro pre-made braking bumps and little choppy roughness over pretty much the entire track. There's not much of this track that has that perfectly glass flat smooth feeling to it, so gives you quite the natural feeling to the track, right? There's a really cool quad in rhythm that you can hit on one of the sections. Definitely got that nice little separator there type section over there, so that's really cool. But just seeing a nighttime track of any kind on MX bikes is gonna be pretty amazing. Any kind of first time of any sort of biome or track, like the first snow track on MX bikes is gonna seem amazing. The first nighttime track on MX bikes is gonna seem crazy amazing. Whereas now that it's been done, it's not going to be quite as amazing the next time somebody goes in there and makes a nighttime track on MX bikes or whatever, right? So I certainly think just with this track being one of, if not the very first nighttime track in the game, it's definitely elevating it maybe a little higher than it technically is, in a sense, if you know what I'm saying. But nonetheless, it's still a fun little track. There's some fun little rhythms to it. The whoops on this track, I mean, yeah, they could definitely be bigger. They could definitely be more separated apart from each other to give you more of that actual whoop feeling. I think there's a bit of an issue here where people are getting in a habit of making the whoops way too close together on MX bikes. Not really sure where that's coming from, but that is something I've kind of noticed with a lot of custom tracks on MX bikes. People just putting each one of the individual whoops a little too close together, and it's making them easier. It's making them easier than they should be. But yeah. But I mean, we all know that the whoop skill gap and difficulty on MX bikes is just not really up there when it comes to like comparing some other elements of the game. So just kind of is what it is type situation with MX bikes. But yeah, man. So right off the bat, I just want to give a big round of applause to all of these track makers and all these motocross games, because I know it's not easy. I know it's a very difficult thing to go in here and make custom tracks. I've done it for a long time on MX Simulator. I know how it is, right? So we got to give a round of applause to all these guys. Hurren, all these boys has made custom tracks on Reflex, MX Sim, MX Bikes, because that's really what makes these games what they are. Like, it's almost to the point where I feel like the developers of these games should be paying some of their income that they get off their games to some of these big track makers in their games. I'm not saying a crazy amount of money, right? But I definitely think that would be a nice gesture for some of these different developers of these different motocross games to pay some money out to these guys, these big track makers in their games, because that's what makes their games what they are. If it wasn't for these track makers, these games wouldn't be what they are, man. Reflex is kind of different because it had all that stock track content to it, but as far as MX Simulator and MX Bikes, they wouldn't be anywhere without these loyal custom track makers that they're just doing it out of the fun of the game. I mean, yeah, they do have donation links, and I have a donation link and shit like that, but trust me, we're not making thousands upon thousands off of a fucking donation link, you know what I mean? Like, but really in reality, these people are making these different custom track makers are making these games into what they are. So, you know, be sure and go donate to these guys. And some of you guys like Paboso and JLV, you boys, you really should get into thinking about that a little bit, you know? If you start giving these different people, like the Nicholas Sandbox dude that made the 3D scan tracks on MX Sim, man, he should have got some money from JLV for that. He really should have, because that pushed MX Simulator to a whole nother dimension that it had never seen before, you know? But all I'm getting at is I just think some of these custom track makers deserve a little bit more than what they get, but nonetheless, they know what they're getting into it for. They know they're not expecting any money out of it. They're just doing it for the fun of the game, but that makes it even better, you know? It makes it even more cool because they're doing it strictly out of the fun of the game and how much they love the game and want to push the game forward. So I just want to say mad respect to all the track makers out there. Mad respect, dog. But yeah, so it's cool to see these, you know, people trying to push the envelope with these different kind of biome designs and, you know, nighttime tracks with shading, and you can see the shadow behind you and all that cool shit on this midnight Supercross track. And yeah, it's not a bad on track. What I will say is, you know, obviously the whoops could be a little bit bigger, but they're just, even still, I mean, I think MX Bikes needs a bit of a physics improvement to make the whoops more difficult, more than it is just making the whoops bigger, if that makes any sense. But nonetheless, there's a couple of cool places where you can kind of cut up the inside. There's some pre-made ruts coming out of the corner before the whoop section. You know, it's got that nice little... Got some pre-made, but not like a crazy amount of pre-made, so you can still have fun with it with the terrain deformation of the game. Got a nice little balance with that here on this track. So, yeah, man, had a fun little time on it. Is it the most amazing MX Bikes track ever? No, it's not. Do I think it being one of the first nighttime tracks, definitely pushing it probably a little above what, you know, people are going to freak out every time there's like a new biome or the first nighttime track on MX Bikes or whatever. And it's not to say the track is bad or anything, 'cause I definitely don't think that. I've definitely rode on a lot worse tracks than this on MX Bikes as far as the on track. It's a solid little rideable track, you know. It's not like a terrible track or anything, but I just think, you know, if this exact kind of track was made on MX Simulator in 2021, with there already being literally like hundreds of nighttime tracks made in that game, it would be considered probably a average or slightly less than average track. But for it being on MX Bikes and it being one of the first nighttime tracks for MX Bikes, it's going to be considered above average, you know, maybe even a little more than just slightly above average. So that's kind of your comparison between that. But yeah, I really enjoyed the little rhythm coming out after the, you know, you hit that right-hand corner and you can actually hit a quad, and there's enough of a landing there to where it's not annoying trying to land the quad in. Then you can hit the triple. Can be a slightly tricky doing that quad in and then the triple, because then you got to jump, land down a landing, then go up a hill. I still think MX Bikes has a bit of a buggy issue with the physics system, specifically going up hills. I don't know what it is about it, but I felt that way from day one about MX Bikes. There's just something weird about the physics when you're going uphill, and it makes it even worse when you're going uphill slow. It's like sometimes it's all you can do to keep the bike's physics system from just completely spazzing out whenever you're going up a hill slow. And it's just weird because I don't really notice that bizarre spazzing out of the physics system anywhere else in the game necessarily. But going up a hill and going up a hill slow, oh buddy, get ready, because that little thing's going to take off, dog, in the most bizarre direction you could ever imagine. But, yeah, man, so either way, I'd say difficulty on this track. I mean, if you're hitting, there's a couple little quad in, those really small, like, rollers after the main whoop section, you can do a quad on those, but they're not super big. You know, they're kind of more rollers than they are like a rhythm section jump. And the rest of the track is just, it's somewhere in that medium difficulty. I mean, yeah, it can be a little tricky to get the speed out of the corner to hit that bigger quad in rhythm. You definitely gotta be on the gas, gotta be smooth around the start of the corner, and then hard on the gas up to the jump face, and then huck the bike. You gotta have a little bit of momentum on your side to be able to get the bike to jump that far. But yeah, it's got a little bit of a Joker lane type vibe thing coming around the finish line. I didn't really mess with that too much, but yeah, got a little bit of pre-made, ruts. The berms are not super big. That's one thing I will say. You know, you can definitely almost get the feeling of like riding off of the berm kind of easily, especially if you build a little bit of a deformed rut right there where it kind of shaves off the edge of the peak of the berm itself. You can kind of find yourself just going off the berm of the track. But yeah, it's not terrible or anything. Just something to mention, you know, if you get to hauling ass on this track, be careful because you will go off some of these berms if you don't get that bike turned over, you know. But yeah, overall difficulty, I'm gonna say it's like medium. And then, but I mean, if you're really used to riding on those super smooth tracks that have no pre-made roughness at all, it could be a little more like in between medium and hard difficulty to you, I guess, especially if you're hitting the quad lines on the track. It could be a little more like medium to hard difficulty. But yeah, the whoops are literally no challenge at all on this track, which they're not really a challenge on hardly any track. I know there is that air rail test track where the whoops get a little bit more difficult, but still, the whoops are not hard in this game. They're just not. If you get enough momentum and speed and you don't lean that bike and you hold that gas on, they're just not difficult in this game. They're not difficult enough for a full-blown simulator, I can promise you that. But nonetheless, yeah, we're starting to get that vibe now with MX bikes, boy. We're starting to put a little bit of effort in, right? And starting to find a couple little things with the game, and it's definitely making me way more maneuverability out of the bike, for damn sure. There's no doubt about that. So yeah, man, I'd say overall this track's probably like a 7 or an 8. You know, somewhere around that range. I could probably say more like an 8. Overall difficulty's medium. But yeah, dog, either way, got a lot of videos coming up. We're gonna keep that ball rolling, keep it going. You know what it is. Later, dudes.